Okay, so previously we just talked about the USSR and how the fall of the USSR meant that photocopiers and typewriters were no longer something you could get thrown in jail for, and millions of people could be jailed for such holding such instruments. But now that things were theoretically legal, communications were theoretically legal, how are we going to actually implement those in practice? And one of the key developments here was not in the USSR, but actually in the USA. Around the same time, in that late 80s, early 90s period, around the time that the Berlin Wall fell and the USSR opened up, there was a big debate that was brewing at the National Science Foundation in the United States. Basically, since the inception of what was called NSFNet, commerce had been heavily restricted by something called the Acceptable Use Policy. And you can read about this and so on Wikipedia. I've got some links here for background. But basically, because of the fear of widespread spam, pornography, and malware, the academic and government and military users who use the internet did not really see a benefit to opening it up towards commerce. They thought that with the introduction of commercial traffic, there'd be spam and porn and malware, and they were completely right. But of course, there was a lot of other stuff that came out of that. But what happened was, with market reforms in the air, with places like India liberalizing and so on, in 1992 Congress repealed the NSF acceptable use policy. And so you can actually click this and see the particular sentence. If you go to the sentence, this is really the key thing. The bill was amended such that computer networks may be used substantially for additional purposes if this will tend to increase a network's overall capabilities, support research and education in the science and engineering. That seemingly innocuous sentence is what enabled the internet to actually support commerce. And you can read more. I'm not going to go through all of this here, but you can kind of Google around this. Look at acceptable use policy. But here's, for example, Steve Case, who's a founder of AOL, on the Atmosphere at that time. And he notes over here, a few people used the internet in the early 80s to early 90s because it was illegal to use it for commercial purposes. And so this is completely fascinating, because we think of the internet today as synonymous with .com, with commerce. But very importantly, and this is a kind of a common theme, it wasn't enough for the technology to be there. The market has to also be there. That's when you actually get this amazing fusion. The technology had actually been ready for a while. Networking had been around for a while in some form, but the market was only ready. The global internet market only came into being once the USSR and the NSF AUP left the stage of history. So that kind of concludes the historical prerequisites. Let's talk about some of the technologies and technological trends. That was the past, and the present. Let's talk about the future next.